It's funny how whenever Bushido wishes to retrain a cross ride for a budget XL boss that was iconic back in the day but was horrible in V, why do they keep giving us XL generation? Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Mr. here. Today I am back to cover War Deity Asura Kaiser. I think this is the one review that practically no one else expected besides stuff like Chrome Jailer and whatnot. A lot of VCall really came out of blue, and to be frank, I really wasn't expecting them to do it the way they did for the Asura Kaiser. Now, for those of you who didn't actually know, and Bushido was kind enough to do this, they actually reprinted the base Asura Kaiser in the same set because they knew you just never owned this card before. And then also gave you War Deity Asura Kaiser. So this is not actually the cross ride, because the cross ride is actually Immortal Asura Kaiser. This is War Deity Asura Kaiser. No one knows why they chose to make this decision, but in the first place, his design is noticeably different from the old Stride art. So if you've ever seen it either in relive or you've seen it in Vanguard Zero, you've noticed that this design is a lot different. So I actually like this design a lot more, but what I do like more is this deck. I feel this deck is actually really fun for something that's really just a pool of generics. Unlike Draconic Kaiser Vermilion, which I showed an introduction, this deck literally does not have any Asura support. There are no samurais in V, there are no anything in V besides just these two cards to support the identity. So everything you see in this deck is purely generic. But I went a step further. What if we were on a budget? Because there is a strategy going around with Immortal Asura Kaiser, War Deity Asura Kaiser, that actually needs you to play the Extreme Battler package, which includes Sazanda. Sazanda is a promo in the V series. In JPN format, it's really affordable. I think it's at most 300 to 400 yen each, at most. And that's being really, really expensive. It's usually just about 200 yen. But in the English format, it's even delayed if I'm not mistaken. So it's not that easy to get your hands on, especially because promos and the English format are not very good friends. But I'll tell you what can be a good friend. A budget deck. So today I'm actually going to be doing a purely budget deck. So if you're wondering where's Sazanda, where is, my more expensive stuff, it's not here. It's built to be affordable as possible, but still to play around the strengths of the Asura Kaiser package. So yeah, I hope you enjoy. Our grade 3s, we play 4 copies of War Deity Asura Kaiser. We still need 4 copies of the base version of Asura Kaiser. We play 2 copies of Power Trooper Singh. We play 2 copies of Ultra Beast Deity Illuminal Dragon, and 4 Heal Guards. So I'm going to break it down for you in the reverse order so it actually makes sense. We start off with the base version of Asura Kaiser. It has a very simple skill. Let me read it to you. When this unit's drive check reveals a grade 2 or greater unit, you can choose one of your rear guards and stand it. If your drive check was grade 3 or greater, you can actually counterblast 1. The unit you just stood gains 10,000 power. So it's actually free just by flipping any grade 2 or higher card to give it an additional attack. You just need to pay 1 counterblast to give it an extra 10k power. It's not once per turn, so if you get twice, you actually can stand 2. It actually has not aged that bad as compared to stuff like Draconic Kaiser Vermilion, who is downright unplayable no matter how badly you want to fit it. This guy is actually a lot better. I feel that he actually is not bad in the times that you don't actually get to use your War Deities. You actually do want to stay on your Asura Kaiser, especially because, as you later see, there is a lot on the skill which involves a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, I think, for the opponent. So you actually want to make sure that you don't exactly run out of options, so it's actually not bad to play the original Asura Kaiser, even to ride it going first. Of course, if you play Asura Kaiser in the first place, you're not competitive, but it's still not that bad. Yeah, just taking a look at it again. Yeah, I'm right. It requires your opponent's grade to be grade 3 or greater in order to counterblast 1 and stand the board. So yeah, I'm correct. So since I've already started reading that skill, then I might as well just tackle War Deity then. War Deity is where the rest of the deck starts to make sense. From your hand, if your Vanguard is the base version of Asura Kaiser, you counterblast 1 and superior riding from the hand. Wow, I mean, Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's interesting. The second skill is once per turn. If you have this version of Asura Kaiser in the soul, you soul blast one. Then you look at the top three cards of your deck. Leave one card up top. You mill the rest. You heard me right. You mill the rest. Very confusing. I don't get why we need a mill strategy in our Grappler. I like to know who actually decided to mill the rest. But I think beyond that, that's actually a pretty interesting skill. Asura Kaisers are the progenitors of, the infamous Bastion, stuff like that. It's the one that really started this trend. And now seeing that it actually gets the ability to stack the deck, it's really quite a nice homage that it took them, 11, 12 years to get this? So, okay, it is fun. I certainly think this is a really necessary skill in order to ensure that you don't whiff. It's not like God Hand where you have to call a Great Bengal and then stack the front. I mean, even for Ancient Dragons, good stuff, Tachikaze, it's not that hard because Tyranno Legend is relatively easy to access for you to stack the front trigger on top. But this one just surpasses everything. It's part of the Vanguard skills, so you have no reason to whine whatsoever. It's built in. But I would say if you do want to whine or something, it's definitely in the middle too. I don't get why that was there. I really don't. The third skill is when at the end of battle this unit attacks, if it flipped a grade 2 or greater card during its drive check, you choose one of your rear guards and stand it. If your opponent's grade 3 or greater count plus 1, your whole board stands except the Vanguard. So you can now instantly see where this is going. It's a full board restand as long as you just get one grade 2 or higher drive check. And you already have the stacking skills. So yeah, I mean, it's not hard to imagine how this deck works. It's really simple. It's just a whole board stand. So in this deck, the goal is less of more restanding because we are letting War Deity do the main restanding job for us. We are here to play around these strengths. So we do the values, we do the resource management, we do the numbers. We are going to allow War Deity to stand because even if you want to stuff your deck with like 19 kick typhoons and cool hangs and whatever you dream of, if you think about it from a perspective, it's no point having low numbers on many attacks, but if you can just have larger attacks just a bit smaller times and you can kill the game. There's a reason why some people just completely hate stuff like Beatrice and Night Rose or even Armon Scarhawk. It's because of stuff like this. You have a good number of attacks on a good amount of numbers. So really that's how you want to be playing Asura Kaiser, at least from this standpoint. Even Sazanda follows this same ideology. So really, no matter what variant you intend to play, whether you have money or not, this is how you generally do want to stick around War Deity, Asura Kaiser. I think the heal guards are very explanatory, seeing that we need a grade 3, a grade 2 or greater card revealed during the drive check. So it's really just more for the ratio, and it helps stop bulk early aggression, which does really kill 90% of Nova Grappler players who are still playing V series. So do keep that in mind. Our two picks that we kind of split in a very nice half-half manner are Trooper Singh as well as Ultra Beast Deity Illuminal Dragon. I want to cover Illuminal because he's the one I really like more. I used to pack him when I was a kid. Illuminal Dragon on the Vanguard Circle. At the end of the battle that he attacks, Counterblast 1, choose one of your rear guards and stand it, and then you give the unit that stood 10,000 power. So yeah, it's a really simple skill. It's just as long as something happens after the battle, you just count plus 1, you just stand a unit. It's once per turn, so you can't exactly use it very often, but it's okay. It's alright as a backup skill, I feel. It's really quite simplistic because as long as the rear guard did not, it's not the Vanguard. As long as the rear guard did not hit, you count plus 1, you stand it, it gets 10 and it attacks again. So it's actually kind of meant for beast deities because they can attack during the main phase, but it's fine to kind of have the last sentence that unit attacks the opponent's Vanguard because it kind of ties in because you were going to do it eventually. So basically this skill is that, if one of my beat sticks didn't touch you, I'm just going to flip one card in the damage zone, it's going to do it again with an extra 10. So yeah, Ultra Beast Deity Luminal Dragon is one of those bosses that, while it seems so tight to the archetype, it's so generic, I like it. It's a good backup, right? If you really need to. But for this deck, we are here for skill number 2, which is when your unit's attack hits anyone, he gains 15,000 power once per turn. Alright, it's a 27k beater for free. No cost, just hit. There's nothing else you can ask for. Ultra Beast Deity Luminal Dragon has been one of those cards for the Asura deck that, honestly, in paper, it sounds perfect. But some people just don't like it because it's just more numbers. People rather play stuff like Cosmonaut when you can have a restander and still get the power and tying together with how War Deity works by restanding your whole board. That's fine as well. But I feel this is actually pretty nice to invest in if you don't have Cosmolord, or if you just don't like Cosmolord because he requires a board. Sometimes you just don't have pieces, right? So you just want something that can work on itself, which would be Illuminal Dragon. Last but not least, we have this guy. His skill is very simple. When he attacks, Counterblast 1, discard 1. He gets Drive -1 and he can perform drive checks on the rear guard. Yes, it's basically Counterblast 1, discard 1 for an extra drive, but it's tied to him. Why do we need that? More drive checks never hurt anybody, and it's basically a filter because we have a lot of cards in this deck that you sometimes just don't want to see anymore, right? So just throw them away and pray for a drive check. Drive checks are good because if you somehow did not trigger off from War Deity, you can now trigger off this guy. You can also get a chance to get a trigger. So it's just nice. It's not as nice as Luminal is, but it's niche enough that he works for this deck. So I feel he's definitely appreciated. We are gonna move on to the Grade 2s. The Grade 2s are quite fun too, in my opinion. We play 4 copies of Ultimate Razor Dual Flare. We play 4 copies of Stylish Hustler, and we play 4 copies of Genocide Jack. Yes, you're looking at it right. It's all numbers, and they are very affordable options too. I'm going to start off with this one because he's really quite fun. Stylish Hustler gains 3000 power for each card in your damage zone. So the longer the game progresses, the more damage you take, he gains more power for free. Alright, that's fine. But he has a utility skill as well. When your rear guard is retired by your opponent's effect, you can Soul Blast 1 and choose one of those units and add it back to your hand. So it kind of helps against some form of board wipe, which, as you know, Nova Grapplers are really piece reliant and are sensitive to board removal. So this was a nice option to have, considering it fulfills the numbers option and it gives us a little bit of a protection, albeit at a cost. But it does allow us to reuse any on places, so I'm not exactly against this guy. I know that some people just don't like Stylish Hustler because, you know, it's just so mid as a card. That's what they say. It doesn't do that much, but I feel it does enough to warrant a spot in this deck. And of course, I think one of the most natural choices for this deck, which I think most variants will be running, is Genocide Jack or Brutal Jack. He gains 10,000 power when he's on the Vanguard or Rearguard circle, so he's changed into a 19k beater. Nice, but he can't restand on a Rearguard circle by natural causes. Instead, the only way he can restand is by resting 2 of your other Rearguards. Now you see why some people just don't like him. But he works really well with War Deity because you can just rest the back with stand him up, attack with Brutal Jack, attack with War Deity, the whole board stands. Anyone who was rested by Jack stands, Jack himself can stand for additional attack. It just works really well and it's free. Not only that, but he gets the 10k on the Vanguard circle, which means you can actually completely have an aggressive turn on turn 2 and not be punished at all by the restand skill. So that's why Brutal Jack is actually still okay. For this deck, I get it that he doesn't really have much uses in V series anymore. He used to be much more popular when Nova had a much smaller and weaker card pool, but now it's kind of like he's fallen off. But to me, I still think he's great. The art is still perfect. He still looks a lot like his original self, so I'm really fine with the way this Brutal Jack is supposed to run with War Deity, but I mean, you kind of need him, especially for the Sazanda based deck, to rest the rear guards, and then after that you can stand it. So yeah, he's still pretty good. And of course, my tech pick, if you can call it that, is Ultimate Razor Dual Flare. An old friend of mine from, the Razors. Why is he here? When he attacks, if none of my rear guards are standing in the front row, he gains 3000 power for each card of my opponent's grade. Sorry, for each number of my opponent's grade. So if my opponent's grade 1, he gains 3k. If he's grade 2, he gains 6k. My opponent's grade 3, he gains 9k. And this is on V or R. So again, like Brutal Jack, you can have a completely aggressive turn 2 with high numbers and it's still fine. He's even a very good beat stick, but he needs to be the last attack. So you do need to time it in the sense that everyone else jumps first, then you go into dual flare, and then your War Deity or your base Asura Kaiser can then attack. So that's generally how this guy wants to be used. So he's just really good. He's just like Stylish Hustler, but the numbers are a lot more easier to get because your opponent will be riding, right? That's how this game works. But he has a utility, which is at the end of the bell that he's using attacks. If you have one or less cards face up in your damage zone, move into the soul, your Vanguard gains 5,000 power and you can counter charge 1. So yes, you are losing a front or rear circle, or whatever you call them, but you do get a counter charge, which you do need for this deck. And your Vanguard does gain 5, so it does help you hop over some numbers. But of course, you need to make sure you get this skill correctly. Don't use this before War Deity attacks, because then you won't be able to withstand the big stick that is Dual Flare. Make sure that Dual Flare is the last attack of your turn. Like, he's made his last attack. He's not attacking after this anymore. Then you can move into the soul to counter charge 1. That's generally how you want to do it, but then again, you do lose out on 5k. So you do have to play around and see. I say this is a tag for a reason because, you know, the way you use it is definitely up to the pilot. You can obviously play other stuff, but like I said, we're trying to make the best use of our budget, so I feel Dual Flare does serve that purpose really well. We're going to move on to our grade 1s, which is really short, but it will be a lot of talking. Play 4 copies of Screaming and Dancing Announcer's Shout, 3 copies of Sazanda, sorry, this is Arashid, and 2 copies of Claydol. Yes, you heard me right. This is our grade 3 Searcher. We're only playing 3 because we don't need that many considering how big the deck is and we need space, you know. But his plus 5k condition is as long as a card stands by your card's effect, which can work pretty easily. So, not much to say. I mean, you need to play Arashid in practically every Nova Grappler deck that you can fit him in, so yeah. Of course, we have 2 copies of Claydol Mechanic. Claydol is our resource management because when you counter blast, you retire him, you can counter charge. Okay, so you can actually rest him for effects like your big boy Brutal Jack, and it won't punish you whatsoever. And he has a nice draw skill too. When placed on the rear guard, if you have 4 less cards in your hand and field, you draw a card. Alright, so you can help catch back up for advantage with just a 3+1, and then you can continue your big assault. Considering that you do have XL circles, anything you do draw could potentially still play a role in the battle in terms of being an attacker. And because your deck is so heavy leaning, even a heal guard can be a 15k attacker. So, okay, why not? The contradictory pick is Shout. Shout is people love him, people hate him. Why is he here? Rest this card, and you and your opponent look at the top cards of their decks. Whoever gets the highest grade gets added to their hand. Whoever with the lowest grade gets added to the soul. If they are of the same grade, both go to the hand. Why would you play this? It gives your opponents cards, right? Not really. Remember, you are playing a minimum of 12 to 14, if not more, grade 3s in an Asura Kaiser deck. And you have a lot of grade 2s too. So generally, your deck is much more top heavy than most decks, I can safely say. So you, more rather than not, will actually be adding cards to your hand. Of course, there are chances where you don't get your top heavy stuff and you get a soul charge. That's fine too, because the chances of you actually getting a card as compared to soul charge is not that much, and you don't mind the soul blast because you already have stuff like War Deity. So you also have stuff like Stylish Hustler if need be. So it's not completely the end of the world. And I mean, if you soul charge an Asura Kaiser somehow, then you win the game. But no, in all seriousness though, I still think it's pretty okay, and it does rest, so you can actually have a back row of 2 to 3 Shout, build your resources over turn, and they can still participate in the battle because War Deity will restand them in the back row, which do count for 6k boosters. It's alright, but not bad. And considering how easy it is to stand the board, will a +1 card advantage really stop you? I mean, I'm not sure. Just think about that for a bit. Yes, some people do not like this card at all. So if you don't like him, you cannot play him. But I feel that for people who are willing to try new things or are fans of Shout themselves, then I'll say, yeah, you should actually give this guy a shot. Our grade 0 lineup will be, of course, Battle Razor, and then we play 8 crits, and of course 4-drop PG. Now, we don't play fronts in this deck. I know people like to play fronts because, like I said, it's XL generation, but we are interested in killing as fast as possible. So your crits actually do matter. You don't need to worry about, oh, I need the fronts to spread over the board, because you don't want to thinly spread your resources on turns that you don't actually want to overcommit. Remember, there are times where you actually don't mind staying on Asura Kaiser. So you don't actually have to worry about, oh, having a big front row and then attacking you and whatnot. Your fronts don't actually help you as far as you believe. And like I'm going to say, if you do want to play the front stuff, you do need to play a lot of the other front support that is featured in God Hand Dragon. So that would really bring the deck to another direction, which is fine, but I feel that doesn't really bring out the strengths of Asura Kaiser. Remember, you get extra drive checks and stuff like Sing, and if you just stack a crit onto the right attacker, you can potentially attack for quite a lot of damage, especially in the center column, where if they're quite, tired of guarding the bigger attacks, they could just choose one of them to go through, and if you have a well-placed crit, you could win the game. It's not completely out of imagination. Yes, of course, if you want to play competitive, you should not be playing Nova Grappler, you should be playing Gurgit, but I mean, if you are here to have a good time and try it out, I say you should try crits first, unless it really is just against your playstyle no matter what, then try front. Yeah, and that brings us to the end of this War Deity Asura Kaiser deck profile. Like I said multiple times in this video, this is really focused on A, Asura Kaiser, and B, fun. You should not be here hoping to build a deck to be able to move out to your VMC or your BSF. No, that's not what this is for. This deck is also built on a budget, which means you can actually choose more expensive and better cards like Kick Typhoon to actually be playing your deck. I know I said before that having stuff like Kick doesn't really help if you don't have numbers, but you notice I have a bit too much numbers. So you can actually choose to either A, cut your Stylish Hustlers, or cut your Dual Flares. You could play stuff like Cool Hang. It's totally acceptable. That's the best part. Because this deck is just all generics. You can play an entire Asura Kaiser deck out of the best of Nova Grappler. It's totally possible. And this is not even the best. This is just the budget of Nova Grappler. So honestly, I feel that this card is really fun in terms of design. They brought back a completely dead boss and gave him such a new spin. And not like Vermilion, where you're forced to play relatively subpar cards to make him still operational. I say War Deity does a lot better in summarizing an entire support wave in one skill text. That is noteworthy. So yeah, if you are a long-time fan of Nova Grappler, or you just want something cheap to try, I say you should go for this guy, because it is really affordable and it's just really fun. Thank you all so much for watching. This has been another deck from VCall. I know I've been really quite slow with my VCall decks, especially because I've recently just came back from my trip. So do let me know in the comment section below if you would like to see any decks. I know I received 1 to 2 requests. I will be going through them to see if I can actually do it, but there is a lot more on the way, and I mean a lot more. Stuff that you probably are expecting me to cover is still there. I mean, what happens when the strongest flame dragon resurrects? Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.